Xbox may have thought it was indestructible, that nothing could go wrong after spending billions buying out every single studio that they could get their hands on. Now the hammer is coming down really hard than ever. I mean, look at this from Kotaku. Compulsion Games, that's the makers of South of Midnight, they're officially in the red zone of Xbox's sights when it comes to being shut down for good, and people, they're panicking all right. It's even more gross because Matt Booty, whose last name is eloquently titled since he seems to be very bad at doing his own job, considering how poorly Xbox has been managed since he's been there, had this to say about South of Midnight development studio Compulsion Games. South of Midnight today won a Peabody Award, which I think is such a validation of the storytelling capability of games these days. And that's right on the heels of them winning a BAFTA for new IP a couple Fridays ago, and that is our goal, right? Is it your goal though, Matt Booty? Because it doesn't feel like it does it? It kind of seems more like you guys are talking out of both sides of your heads in order to appeal to anybody that's listening to you. As Tom Warren of The Verge showed here in that second paragraph, which Matt Booty said, I think we got one of the best portfolios out there, even in the entertainment industry more broadly in terms of that range. We're dedicated to it. That's a lie, and here's why. I believe that almost everything big started as something small. We cannot lose the ability to have those places where little sparks can grow into something big. Well, that's a lie too. The creative environment that lets us take bets and creative risks has to be part of Xbox's culture. We're committed. Our studio system is built for that. Well, clearly you guys aren't, if the very studios you were praising to be your future are now on the chopping block. But again, what can I expect from Matt Booty, of all people? Really, that last name is just so unfortunately titled for this guy. And oh yeah, they're not even the only ones. Like, look at this from The Verge as well. Ninja Theory, that's people behind Hellblade. They're also looking to be closed down by Xbox as well. And wait, I hear you say, didn't they just announce Senua? Isn't that an action adventure, like a real video game version of that Hellblade franchise at Xbox's showcase they just showed in June? Yes, you're right. Xbox did parade them on screen in front of millions of people and said, look, we got Senua coming. Trust us, guys. This time it's going to be a real game and not a tech demo. And now they're getting closed down allegedly. Wow, another win for Asha Sharma and Matt Booty. Those people, man, they just keep hitting those wins out of the park. Another studio looking to be closed down is Double Fine. They're the makers of stuff like Grim Fandango and Broken Age, as well as Psychonauts. So Microsoft is looking to close them down too, which that one does not surprise me at all. Apparently, as Bloomberg reported as seen here via Wario64, Ninja Theory, Double Fine, and Compulsion Games are all in talks with Microsoft to split off from their resources and management to become independent again. However, this is not set in stone in really any which way, because these negotiations could result in these studios leaving Xbox's umbrella, sure, but obviously Xbox paid for them, which makes you think, how is Double Fine or Ninja Theory supposed to just find the money needed to buy essentially their freedom from Microsoft amidst all of this happening? Unless they're able to find investors or something that's willing to spend millions of dollars to save these studios, it's just not reasonably going to happen. Another studio looking to be closed down is Arcane Leon. They're the team currently working on that Marvel Blade game over there in France. They also, I think, helped on that game Redfall, maybe. That's a total of 4 studios that we know of so far that are on the chopping block. And while this seems horrible, unfortunately, when you look at the raw data, the numbers make sense as to why Microsoft is doing this. As seen here in this handy little image, here's the Steam player chart numbers of all 4 studios currently facing Oblivion. And the numbers, they make sense the longer that you look at it. Every one of these games in this image underperformed. There's no way that you can deny that. It's just the truth, unfortunately. For Ninja Theory, Bleeding Edge was meant to be a live service melee game of all things, with, let's just say, very diverse character shapes that failed spectacularly. Stuff like Kiln and such from Double Fine barely found an audience. Compulsion Games created very diverse games that were also aligned with a certain company, let's just say, that was called Baby, of the sweet variety, that pushed South of Midnight to change its entire aesthetic to be forcing a black protagonist when originally it was a white one. And we know this is true because developers spoke out against South of Midnight developer Compulsion Games for well over a year and then some. Like the now infamous, as you can see here, leaked image of Hazel, the main character of South of Midnight, being transformed from a white woman to a black woman once activist consultants of that same variety who got involved with that game's production. And even with Ninja Theory, I mean, that totally makes sense why Microsoft doesn't want them either. They're just a money sinkhole with Hellblade. Like, who are we kidding? I recently recently spoke to some developers in my DMs about these Xbox things, and one thing that they kept bringing up a few times was Ninja Theory specifically. None of them understood why they made the games that they were making to begin with. Hellblade 2 especially, that one made even less sense. The game is a glorified tech demo designed as a $60 video game. It can also be beaten in a few hours with like no replay value. It may as well have just been a movie because it barely justifies itself being a video game. Senua, the sequel or spin-off or spiritual successor, however you want to call it seemed like Ninja Theory was finally course correcting. They were now promising this game was coming in 2027 too, as Engadget reported here recently, but more on that as you can see where I highlighted. Senua was also promising to be an action-adventure premium game finally, with the technological know-how of Hellblade behind it to become a real video game. So Ninja Theory, after wasting something like 10 years of development time creating these tech demos and Melee live service failure games, I guess they just finally decided to lock it in and make a real game for once, and now it's too late, I guess. But if nobody buys them, well then Senua is dead before it even comes out. But again, logistically, why would anyone with millions spend money saving Ninja Theory? If Hellblade 1 and 2 didn't move the needle in copies sold but existed mostly as glorified tech demos, then why would people show up for Senua then? It does seem like a waste. Like, this Senua game should have been the game that they were making before they released or thought Hellblade 2 was even a good idea. But everything here, it's just too little too late, and if they get axed, it would be unfortunate but not surprising. Double Fine, that's the other company being allegedly axed, that one makes sense to me. Their games barely move any copies at all. And Double Fine is notorious for always somehow going over budget when it comes to making their games too, which if you're looking at Double Fine's games on screen right now, you're probably wondering to yourself, like, how are they going over budget with this? As Vice reported here in 2015 when Broken Age was coming out, that game was notoriously kickstarted and needed around $400,000 to be developed. Double Fine ended up crowdfunding $3.3 million somehow, and even then the game went over budget, which how does that even happen? Here's the exact number crowdfunded via Broken Age's Kickstarter page for you to see. Explain to me like I'm stupid how a game that needed $400,000 somehow went over budget with multiple times its entire cost. But this is Double Fine, and them being axed, again, it doesn't surprise me at all, because they, like the other studios mentioned, while they may have people who are talented that work there, I'm not denying that, they are money sinkholes that are not making games that players want. That's the point. And that's something I've been hearing a lot lately, that developers need to stop making games that players want, but start making what the developers want to make instead. And if you look at what Ninja Theory or Double Fine alone have done in the past 10 years and then some, what you'll find is games made that the developers wanted to make. But they weren't things that players actually wanted to buy, because if they were, then they wouldn't be facing closure now, would they? This is why whenever I hear someone say we have to listen to developers and let them make what they want, it's a double-edged sword every time. If players' needs aren't being met and real games, so to speak, aren't being made that are realistically viable, you end up with what Xbox has been doing for the past 13 years. Well, besides Playground Games, they've been like the only company that Xbox owns that's been consistently hitting it out of the park with like the Forza games. And you know things are cooked when Louise O'Connor, the chief of staff, who's this lady here, has also allegedly confirmed that she's leaving Xbox effectively immediately as well. How cooked are things if the chief of hiring people is leaving the company they hire at? In Compulsion Games' case, it makes even more sense, since their community manager, for example, is seen here, has been somebody who has just said that she opposes white gamers and such vehemently. Like, are we really still doing this? And how infamously she said is seen here that she hates gamers as a group, which, wow, who could have imagined they're closing down now? With people like this on your payroll, how could you not succeed, Xbox? The thing about Xbox and what's going down is that it proves quite a few things, right? For one, Xbox clearly, for the most part, has no real idea how to cultivate and spin this many plates by owning this many studios, and it shows. Secondly, Xbox, while obviously you can blame them to a degree, these development studios are to be blamed as well. Because Xbox has done nothing but give these studios carte blanche pretty much when it comes to what they could make. They had way more resources than they would ever have if these people were on their own in their own independent studios. They've had more help than ever by being able to speak and work with other Xbox-owned studios to get pointers or insight or even technology. And they had no deadlines that really needed to be met in order to stay open in a traditional sense, because everything's being made for Game Pass anyways. So companies like Double Fine, Ninja Theory, Compulsion Games, and more all had every single opportunity to make the absolute best games they could ever make given their positions. They were given zero oversight by Xbox and just allowed to make whatever it is that they wanted. Most studios never even get that option, and this proves that when you give these studios this unlimited blank checks to make apparently what they want to make, all you kind of end up doing is making slop that nobody wants to play anyways. Like, look at Double Fine's most recent game. It's called Kiln. On Steam charts, as you can see here, it hit a high concurrent player count of 193 players. And that just came out 2 months ago as of this video being made, and now only 24 people are playing it as I write this video. Why was this studio not reined in and told to make games that people actually wanted to play? Because Kiln's player count would be fine if like one guy in his bedroom made that game on a shoestring budget, but when you got a whole studio full of these industry veteran professionals that are costing millions to keep employed every year, you have to stop huffing the farts and realize that these people are swindling places like Xbox by taking all these resources they can while delivering absolutely nothing but just slop that nobody in their right mind wants to buy or really even play. There's no way that Kiln made its budget back. Here's Double Fine's previous game, Keeper, on Steam charts. It somehow did even worse than Kiln did. Again, would you be okay theoretically spending millions of dollars to keep Double Fine open, knowing that their games are getting like community college graduates' first tech demo levels of players in response? You'd be crazy to keep these people open. Even games that they're known for, like Psychonauts, here's the sequel on the Steam charts. It hit a high player count of just 7,262 people. And this is the sequel to probably one of their best known IPs that Double Fine has ever made. Like, let's be real, guys. If Double Fine was an independent game studio that had to lock in investors and make games to stay alive, they would 100% have been shut down years ago. Looking at how their games are performing, there's barely an audience for any of this. Look, I get it, okay? They want to make weird games, want to be zany, but if you want to do, like, make those games, like, you got to do it on a shoestring budget. Not when you're owned by Microsoft, of all things. Like, Double Fine, like Compulsion, they had their resources to make the greatest games ever. Could you imagine, like, a Final Fantasy game or an Elden Ring game that had Microsoft unlimited budget resources behind it? But no, that's not going to happen, right? And like some spoiled rich kid, they're just, all these studios, they just amounted to much of nothing. And this proves without a doubt to me that maybe a lot of these teams shouldn't be making things they want to make, but someone needs to rein these people in and say, okay, you want to make some quirky game, I guess, but you need to make it not appeal to 5 people and their cat at best. But it's so zany and weird. I'm Tim Schafer. Look at me. I support all the current things. Okay, I guess. But your games aren't justifying the price tag that Microsoft paid for you guys. Neither is Compulsion or Ninja Theory either. r/gaming and leaks over on Reddit shared this one guy named Simon Pullman from LinkedIn who claims that he knows the sale numbers and budgets of specifically South of Midnight and games like The Outer Worlds 2. So take this with a grain of salt, but here we go. As seen here, apparently South of Midnight costed somewhere near $100 million and sold only about 500,000 copies, which is absolutely diabolical in terms of return on investment. Outer Worlds 2 also costed apparently $100 million. That brought in only 1 million copies sold, which is catastrophic as well. Like, fathom that. South of Midnight took 7 years to make, $100 million, and they couldn't even hit 1 million in sales as a best case scenario. It's no wonder they're getting closed down by Microsoft. And honestly, the more I look at how these studios have operated for years, how much their games costed to make, and how many players their games actually reached when it came to real paid customers, not Game Pass, it kind of tells me what I need to know. Microsoft is obviously to blame for this, of course. I mean, they allowed it to happen. They gave these studios all the money and time in the world to deliver these subpar games. And what they've been making is a bunch of things that if these studios made these games while being independent, they know that every single one of them wouldn't even exist today, and that's a fact. There's no way that Ninja Theory would exist dumping millions of their own investors' money into a tech demo with Hellblade. Double Fine would have been shuttered years ago. Maybe we do have to stop listening to what developers want to make and start realizing, as much as it pains them and annoys them, that maybe players have a point. Sure, it will make these types mad if I say that, but realistically, what can you really do? Xbox's leadership, in a sense, was a golden dream for these sorts of developers, and it still didn't work. Like, here's infinite money, resources, and time, and you don't have to worry about sales numbers. Now go make what you think is the best possible game that you could ever make. And what do you have to show for it? Outside of like Forza consistently performing well, the majority of what they're making isn't. So it's clear that unlimited freedom and resources weren't the answer to better games. It's like what I said years ago in a video that I did on Xbox, where I will repeat myself because it's important and it's relevant again, where I said that the best things that get made are when the objective endpoint of there being actual total failure as an actual end goal. Think about your own life, okay? If you knew that no matter what you did, that you would get bailed out by your billionaire father or whatever, you wouldn't care about anything that you do. You would just be doing things. You wouldn't be worrying if it works out because you would be saved every time, so who cares? In reality, obviously, most of us live in this world where we don't get to just live that way, do we? We have to work. If we don't put in the hours, if we don't make something of ourselves, the end result, right, is something bad. But that's scary, isn't it? But is that not also a big reason why we all try every day to better ourselves too? Because that fear of failure, of loss, is what drives you to ensure that every decision that you do make, whatever it is, leads to a possible future where you come out the other side better. And it's the same thing with video games and how they get made too. This is why From Software isn't out here randomly making Double Fine-like games. They know that they need to uphold what they can deliver. Because the reality is that if they don't, things can get bad really fast. So what do? They make stuff like Dark Souls and Sekiro and Elden Ring. They make these games that are not only marketable, but great to play. Because the fear of failure, no matter how big or small of a studio you are, is always present. Which then unlocks that part of your human brain where you need to problem solve. Okay, I'm in a bad spot. What can I do? What are my options? What can be done to fix this? We've all been there, right, to some capacity. The problem with Xbox Studios is they have been in that rich son billionaire dad situation for so long, they've completely lost that fear of what failure is, which unironically was actually responsible for these same studios before they got acquired to make the games that they were known for, which led to their acquisitions in the first place. So they lost that ability clearly once Microsoft brought them in, because if Double Fine didn't deliver, it's okay. It's fine. Daddy Xbox is just gonna pay Tim Schafer's bills either way. So who cares if Kiln or Keeper reach absolutely nobody? There's no audience and no one buys it. Tim Schafer's still gonna get his paycheck either way and go on vacation, right? It really is that one saying that victory can defeat you in a sense. They lost sight of what really mattered, so no wonder what's happening is happening finally. Billions of dollars were flowing into the Xbox ecosystem. The narrative that they set was simple at first. Xbox is like, we don't want to compete with PlayStation. They just wanted to dominate everything through sheer quantity over quality. A lot of people probably believed it, right? Clearly they did. How could they not? No one single company has ever assembled the amount of talent that Xbox has under one roof. They, as an Xbox and Microsoft, they possess a level of financial power, dude, Sony or Nintendo can't even match themselves. But it also proves that you can have all the money in the world. It doesn't beat real creative talent that has that human spirit in the end anyways, does it? Xbox is still searching for an identity years after all of these acquisitions were made. It's a dangerous place to be. And Microsoft's strategy was just to build around scale, buy up all the studios, the IP, the talent, the content, all of it. It'll figure itself out. If that content can drive platforms, then owning that content would in theory strengthen Xbox, right? But buying talent is one thing, managing it is another, or in Xbox's case, not managing it all apparently, but just giving them complete freedom is what clearly led to their now collapse. Now you can take the idea that games take longer to make, they cost more, teams are bigger, we know that. The fact that Xbox went with this idea proves they really have no idea what they're doing, unfortunately. Xbox can say they have a commitment to gaming, all they really want. The result is that all we keep seeing is layoffs. Nobody's going to trust Xbox leadership seeing what's happening now in anything they say. Game Pass as a concept, I'm surprised it still even exists because it's not really financially possible to even work anymore because the economics around it just make no sense. When I said this in a 2023 video, by the way, I got a lot of flack for it, but I knew it wouldn't work out for them. I think Xbox has no identity anymore because they bought so many studios that there is no singular core identity that exists across all their games. Now it's just a massive group of things. Look at Bethesda, right? Where's the next Elder Scrolls? Why isn't there a new Fallout that isn't called 76? Why was Starfield such a disaster? I saw some people saying id Software, which makes Doom, can't also be found on Xbox's studio website, but I can't confirm that myself. But dude, imagine if id Software got layoffs through all of this too. Then we would know this is so over. I really hope that doesn't happen though, because this growth that Xbox has made has only just bred complexity. And that complex nature is just creating inefficient results. And I saw people on Twitter saying, well, why doesn't Sony or someone else buy, I don't know, Ninja Theory or Double Fine or something? But my question to that is, why would they ever do that? Buy them for what? They don't make games that people want. They were left to their own devices, and one took years making a tech demo with a price tag, and the other made student budget looking games at best. The only companies any other publisher would even be interested in buying is if Xbox sold off, let's say, Bethesda or Activision Blizzard, maybe at best. Sony would probably love to own an IP like Fallout or Elder Scrolls or stuff like Diablo, right? But nobody wants to own Kiln or Keeper or South of Midnight, Psychonauts, or any of this stuff. Nobody wants Redfall. Sony would probably actually love Playground Games. I mean, that one makes sense because Because yeah, they do Forza, Sony does Gran Turismo. They would basically have like a stranglehold on racing games. I could see Sony wanting to snatch up Playground Games. Like that's pretty much the only one, honestly. But even with Sony, like they're cooked right now with development times. I mean, Bungie being a massive misfire for them too, but I'll talk about Sony in another video. The point is that the majority of what Xbox owns right now, nobody really wants it. Like nobody would really want to buy most of it, honestly. Just like a few things and that's it. The likely scenario is all of these studios will close down. Maybe some of Ninja Theory becomes some sort of smaller indie developer in the future. Maybe Double Fine closes down and Tim Schafer attempts to swindle his audience again out of millions to make another mid-game at best. I don't know. But the reality is that the current era of Xbox is pretty much over. The only likely path forward now is a complete reset of priorities, IP, and management. At this point, I think it's far likely that Xbox will just shed, or try to shed anyway, all of its dead weight and mid-level franchises and or studios. And then they will just churn out games from Call of Duty, Halo, Forza, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Diablo, World of Warcraft, maybe bring back StarCraft in a big way too, and stuff like Gears of War as well. And I guess Fable. Did I say Fable? Well, Fable as well, right? They will double down on what I mean is like the most recognizable and obviously bankable franchises that they have, and really nothing else. I wouldn't be surprised if even like Obsidian closes down either, since Outer Worlds and Avowed did horribly as well. I think Microsoft is going to just, in theory, maybe push for the cream of the crop that they think is the AAA heavy hitters, and that's pretty much it. Some may say that's bad for creativity, but the truth is, they're just spending millions, if not billions, on things that nobody wants to buy or play for the most part anyways right now. But this is finally happening, right? Either way, this comes down to Xbox's philosophy being flawed from the start. They believe that scale would somehow solve all their problems and that it would be easier to acquire these successful studios than building their own from scratch. But clearly, just because you own Bethesda doesn't mean you're just going to magically get good games from them. Like, what has Todd Howard even been doing this entire time? Where's Fallout 5, Todd? Why did you announce Elder Scrolls 6 8 years ago and you still have no gameplay to show for it? This can't be how games are made now, man. Xbox has become a warning and it's time to finally face the music, man. But what do you think? Let me know. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you next time.